surrender. This morning we sang about it. Would you just raise your hand with me? And I just want to pray over you. Father, this morning we come with our hearts lifted up before you, with our hands in a sign of submission. We raise them to you. In surrender, we lay them before you. Father, everything that we are, everything we represent, we lay at your feet in surrender. Giving up our rights, giving up our position. Father, we lay it before you. We count our lives as loss for the cause of Christ. Father, would you live out through each one of us by your Holy Spirit today? Would you speak to us? Father, would you anoint our ears to hear, our eyes to see? Father, even as Isaiah spoke, that you would touch the coal to our lips. Purge us, Lord, of unrighteousness. And as we stand before you this morning, Father, we come with open hearts, ready to receive your word. Father, thank you for your presence already. Thank you, Holy Spirit, that you are here with us. We acknowledge you. We acknowledge your presence. Thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for participating. You can be seated. Thank you so much, worship team. Zeke, thank you for playing on the keyboard for us. That was great. And Jake, thank you for doing sound. And Matt for doing projection. Those words just appear. We don't know how that works, but thank you for doing that. We really appreciate that. And the children's workers that are working over in the children's church this morning, thank you for your part. We really appreciate that as well. If you're a parent, then you can just know that your kids are being taught the word. We're grateful for that. And this morning in Sunday school, I just encourage you, if all you're doing is sleeping on Sunday morning anyway, maybe you want to come and just hear some good teaching on the appointed times of Christ. 7 appointed times, and Dean's doing a really great job of teaching. This morning, he did phenomenal. It was really good. Good job, Dean. And we really enjoy hearing that and also finding application. I love this morning that even the way the songs went, the songs that were selected, but the way you participated in worship. Now, I trust that you really meant what you said. Is that true? Like when you sing that, were you really meaning that? Or is that just like you're singing because you like the sound? You're not committing, are you? I trust that you sang out of devotion to the Lord and that you really meant what you said. I trust that's true for each one of you. I just want to illustrate something this morning in beginning. First of all, I'm investing in stocks or bonds or something like that. I don't know. But when we invest, there's a purpose for investing, right? There's a motive when you invest. Is that true? Or do you invest just like, hey, I don't have anything else to do with this. I'm just going to invest it, something. And just like throw it out there and not really give too much thought. How do you determine what you're going to invest in? I want you to think about that. How do you determine what you're going to invest in? What makes your determination how you're going to invest? Now, probably for most of you, you're thinking of money, and that's kind of the theme right at the moment here. So when you think about investing money, what would determine what you're going to invest in? Depends on your personality. You may be conservative and say, hey, I'm afraid that I'll lose everything. So I'm just going to invest. I'm going to invest in my savings account. Is that a good investment? Why is that not a good investment? There's just not much return, is there? In fact, the cost of what an economist would tell you, the cost of inflation well exceeds your money actually losing money by just leaving it in a savings account. So you would hope to get a return. That would probably be one of the motivators. But depending on your personality, you may be conservative and say, hey, I don't want to lose. I don't want to take much risk. So I'm gonna invest in something that's low risk. But what's the problem with that? Low return. Now, you may be a risk taker and you may say, hey, I'm going to invest a lot and I'm going for it. I mean, if I invest here, potentially I could make mega dollars, right? What's the problem with that? You could lose your shorts. Or everything, I guess. Yeah, you could lose a lot. So the more risk you take, potentially the more return that you have available and the more potentially that you could lose, right? I think most of you understand that. So when we invest, we're hoping for a return. We hope that we'll get a return. When should you start investing? What did you say? Young. Why would you start investing when you're young? Compounded interest. So if you start when you're young, potentially you can make a lot more money. If you wait till you're, so Chris said young, so if you start investing at 20 and investing X number of dollars versus waiting until you're 30 or 35, and you could even double that amount of money and you still wouldn't catch up, depending on how you're investing. So starting young, starting right away, but what is the tendency when it comes to investing as a young person? What is our kind of our thought process? Do it later, right? When I'm older. Yeah, I have all my life to do that, right? I'll do that when I'm old, like 30 or 35. I'll wait till then's when because after all, we know that when you're 20 years old, you don't have near as much money because you're buying trucks and cars and Jeeps and all kinds of stuff. No, so the idea is to invest when you're young, invest in something that has lasting value and it's going to have compounded interest. So you have potentially options you could earn as, you could, if you're really on the conservative side, you could say, hey, I'm going to earn 4 or 5%, and at least I know I'm going to get that. There's very little risk involved. Or you can say, hey, I'm going to the top. I'm going to invest. I could make 20%. Now, some of you should be offended by that. You should think about this. Because if you have a credit card and you're paying interest on it, you're probably, I would love to loan you money. If it was scriptural, I would love to loan you money for 20% interest. But I think that's unethical and unbiblical. But credit card companies have no problem with that. And they love to loan you money. They love it when you charge this time of the year. Charge, yes. They have all kinds of deferred payments and all kinds of things. I remember we bought a refrigerator or a freezer. I think it was a refrigerator we bought. And when I signed up, they were insistent that we did this thing where you take 6 months to pay for it. I said, no, I'd just rather pay for it now. And this gal argued with me. It's like, fine, I just want the freezer. Can I just, okay, fine, whatever. So I asked her a bunch of questions, and I kept asking her questions. I read all the fine print, and here's the deal. And I knew this anyway. So why would they offer you deferred payments for 6 months? Why would they do that? Give you money that you can use, no charge for 6 months, and then if you pay it off, you pay nothing extra. Why would they do that? They know you'll either forget or when that 6 month rolls around, you say, I'll just make payments. And they go back and they pick up all the interest from day one. Yep. And you pay all of that at a very premium rate. And if you go a day over, they'll soak you for that 6 month period. That's why they do it. There's method to their madness. They're not doing it because they like you. That has nothing to do with it. Contrary, it's just the opposite. They just want to fatten their pocketbook. So when we think about investments, we understand the concept of investing for a return. We understand the concept of investing, realizing there's always risk when you invest. There's always risk, even in the most secure. I mean, back in, what was that, 38, back in the Depression, people lost everything. And that's why they put money in jars and they hid it after that, because the banks folded up and they couldn't even get their money out of the bank. I think about those kind of things. We have not experienced those in my lifetime. We've never experienced anything comparable to that. When I think about people getting married, I think about people that invest in the rest of their life. And we have a few couples here that are getting married in the near future. And they're planning and preparing a wedding day. They're preparing a wedding day. Do you remember your wedding day, those of you who are married? Anything particular you remember about that? Anything you want to share? No, not now. So, funny things that we remember about our wedding day. And the amount, Pastor Gordy and I have talked about this often, how much effort goes into planning for that one day. The thousands of dollars. If you have children that are going to get married, oh, I feel sorry for you. It is so expensive. It's so expensive. Like everything costs a lot of money. And then, I think it'd probably be better if you just had a big party. Now this is, okay, I'm practical. So I know this wouldn't work, but just saying. So if you just had a big party and you didn't have to spend a lot of money for the photographer, the tuxedos, the dresses, the flowers, the coordinator, the minister, and the venue, and then feed them. Hey, bring your own sack lunch. We're going to have a party. We're going to get married. And then, because the amount of money that it spends, I don't know if that offsets the gifts that they get that they didn't necessarily need. So the practical part of me is like, I think we could be more efficient, but then we don't have ceremony, right? So, okay, scratch that. That won't work. But I think about how much effort goes into that one day that we act like there's this big crescendo, this building up for that one day when we get married, and then life is going to be different from that day on. It will be different. It may not be what you had in mind, but it could be better. So, the idea of investment, again, for that wedding day, we act like that has somehow, like that's such a big deal, and really that's just the gun, the starting gun. That's really not the end. That's all that is. Okay, you've started now. Now you need to live, and for the rest of your life. So, and when we think about that, we think about how we prepare. I appreciate our kind of our philosophy here. Pastor Gordy would feel the same way, that if we're going to marry somebody, we're going to spend brutal hours with them, giving them everything we can to help prepare them. Not because that's going to necessarily be a game changer, but statistically, that improves their odds well over, I think the last I read was like over 60% or 70%, somewhere in there, that they are far more successful just by that one component of spending time getting some type of premarital counseling. It's not a sealed deal. It doesn't guarantee, but it improves the odds greatly. So that's the beginning. But today, what I want to talk to you about is an investment in our marriages. It's interesting how even the course of the song service, just the way Joey, kind of the direction it went, and the word that was shared, that Dawn shared, and I appreciate all of that, because to me, it just helped me solidify some of my thoughts. I had a note here that I made that I copied this down, but it said it's predictable that when a couple sets out to cultivate intimacy and implement specific strategies to strengthen their relationship, drastic improvements follow. Drastic improvements follow. So if a couple sets out, regardless of what other people say, regardless of what other people have done, they say, hey, we're going to do something different. We're going to invest in our relationship. Drastic improvements follow. I don't know about you, but I'm always up for improvements. I'm always up for better. If I can do better, I'm always up for that. I'm not one that settles for, hey, this is kind of mediocrity. No, I want to have the very best. I had one young lady who told me, she said, I don't want a good marriage. I want a great marriage. I want a great marriage. Can any of you identify with that? I want a great marriage. Funny, you know what, just right there, mostly it's women that raise their hands. Now, men are probably just too proud to say, well, yeah. No, I think we all want that. I think it's what we all desire, is to have something great. 2 weeks ago, I gave you 4 tools. I was going to bring one of my favorite tools this morning, but then I thought I would get sidetracked, so I didn't bring it. But that favorite tool, I'll tell you what it is right now. It's my 1/2-inch drive cordless electric impact. I've got a 3/4-ton diesel pickup truck, 4-wheel drive. I can zap off all those lug nuts off that with that thing. It is phenomenal. There's no air hose hooked up to it, and I just charge that battery. It is a beast. Every time I get to use that tool, I say, yes. But I think that in our marriage relationships, here in the body of Christ in particular, we should have that arsenal of tools. We should have something like, I love to use this. It works every time. It works. But there's often excuse. A couple weeks ago, I gave you 4 rules of communication as a tool. I said, be honest, keep current, attack the problem, not the person, act, don't react, all out of Ephesians chapter 4. I think it's still one of my favorite chapters, and anybody who I spend time with in premarital counseling, I'm going to beat them over the head with that thing so that even when they don't want to think about it, they think about it. It's always stuck in their head. It's like a song that you can't get out of your head, so that they'll be reminded of that. How many of you would say that you're spirit-filled here this morning? Now, I want you to participate. If you would say that you're spirit-filled, I want you to raise your hand. You're filled, it doesn't mean you're weird. Are you filled with the Holy Spirit? I want to see your hand big. Put it up there big like you're proud of that. Okay, that's most of you. You're filled with the Holy Spirit. What does that mean for you? What does that mean to be filled with the Holy Spirit? A great testimony? Great investment. Absolutely. Great investment. Great investment. Anything else that means to be filled with the Holy Spirit? God lives inside of you. Faithful God. No room for the world. Fulfillment. Salvation. Life. Good. What? Somebody said? What'd you say? Oh, good fruit bearing. Not fruit. Not a fruity person. Good fruit. That's right. I knew what you said. Good fruit. Wow. Good fruit. So that means that if you're spirit-filled, I should be able to see good fruit in your life.
Amen. Like a skunk, you smell it, you know that's there.
I didn't think of it that way. He said, like a skunk, when you smell it, you know it's there. Okay. The attributes. That's what he's talking about. There should be attributes of the Holy Spirit in your life. It should be demonstrated. It should be obvious. It should be apparent in your life. Is that true? Now I'm going to have trouble getting that skunk thing out of my head. But that was good. It's okay. So we are largely spirit-filled people. We sang songs about healing rain. We talked about speak the name of Jesus. Those are really good songs. And the whole time I'm thinking about, I have 7, you can write it down, 7 things for you, 7 tools this morning. I hope you carry a pen and paper. I know it's old school, but actually it's proven that if you write it down, you will retain it longer than anything else you do. If you write it down, you're more apt to retain it, even than if you just punch it out on your phone, something like that. Not because these are the 7 keys to the kingdom or something like that, but these are like 7 tools that you can use. They're like that half-inch drive impact, electric impact that I have, or cordless impact. They're good tools that you can implement. I want to just remind you what it says in Galatians, right? There's kind of an idea of what it would look like in Galatians 5 when it talks about the gifts of the Holy Spirit. Now, those gifts are given, but they should be demonstrated in our life, right? We ought to desire those things if we're filled with the Holy Spirit, that love, that joy, that peace on any given morning, any Monday. Remember this tomorrow morning when you wake up, I'm spirit-filled. and you're ready to go to work, or you're getting ready to go to work, you're contemplating going to work, that love, joy, peace, long suffering. I can't wait. Kindness and goodness. Wow. I can't wait to get to work to demonstrate kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness. And here you go, the big one, self-control. Right? Self-control. Because those are all things that we have. If we have the Holy Spirit living in us, those gifts should be evident. They should be prevalent in our lives, and it should be demonstrated to the world around us. You know, if you, church, if you don't demonstrate Jesus Christ, whose job is it? If you don't demonstrate the Holy Spirit in your workplace, in your home, in the gas station, wherever whose job is that? Oh, that's probably the elder's job, right? Or no, the deacons are supposed to do it. No, wait, we pay the pastors. They need to do that. They will just call them and, hey, you need to come and be Jesus to these people. No, that's not the way. That's not his plan. So he's given us the Spirit so that we can walk in the Spirit, and he had a plan for each one of us. So in beginning here, I just made a note here. 7 ways to invest for a good return. 7 ways to invest for a good return. How many of you think that the Lord's commandments or his promises, let's say his commandments, that they are actually contingent on somebody else's behavior? So if he commands you, love your neighbor, it's contingent on how well your neighbor behaves, right? Are his commandments contingent on how well you're treated or how well you're mistreated? Okay, so if somebody calls you out and calls you names, it's okay to call them out and call names back? How are we supposed to respond to somebody who treats us with evil? We return evil for evil, right? So it's not contingent on how we're treated. It's still his command. Love those who persecute you, who despitefully use you. Is that right? Do we demonstrate that? Is that how we live? I mean, we're all Spirit-filled, right? That's what we do. So first one here, the first one of 7 things, and I'll try to stay on track here. So the first one is to be kind. It's so obvious to be kind. And you see these signs, in people's yard, be kind. And if there was ever a day to be kind, it's probably today. It's probably today. I'm not willing to get on the floor and fight with you about whether or not you got vaccinated or didn't get vaccinated. I'm not going to do that. I don't care. I'm not willing to die for that. There's some things I die for. I'm not willing to die for that. And you shouldn't either. Don't get distracted, getting caught up in some kind of, ridiculous mantra that your, political affiliation seems to be carrying. You need to make sure that this is the political affiliation that you have. If you get caught up, you'll find yourself, what the mob effect, has anybody ever been part of a mob? It's okay if you have. I've been part, so I've been part of something. It wasn't necessarily a mob, but it was a small mob, and I got caught up doing some stuff that I wouldn't have done on my own. That's what happens in a mob. People get caught up doing something on their own that they would have never done. They would have never done that. And it can cause you to do some pretty uncharacteristic things. But when we're Spirit-filled, as most of you said you are, we're controlled by the Spirit of God. We don't have to get caught up in that mob effect. The first one here says to be kind. In Ephesians 4:32, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago, be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. So when do we forgive somebody? Only when they ask for forgiveness? I think Jesus kind of set a model for that, right? When he hung on the cross, he said, hey, forgive them if they ask for it. No, he said, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't realize what they're doing. He didn't say, forgive them, they're clueless. He didn't say that. He said, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Many times I had first heard this from Edwin Cole, or read it in his book. He's passed away quite a while ago. But he said this. He said, we judge others by their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. We judge others by what they do, and we judge ourselves by what we intend to do, what we hope to do, what we imagine ourselves doing. But we judge others by their actions. So that first one, to be kind. Now, I want to bring this a little closer to home because I want you to understand what I'm talking about this morning is marriage. So when I think about these couples here that are anticipating getting married, and I'm not putting you on the spotlight. Actually, I'm putting the rest of you on the spotlight. Because they're looking to you for an example. You know, Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ, right? Can you say that about your marriage? Even, as they would follow you around and say, hey, husbands, hey, this is how you should this is how you should prefer your wife. Wives, this is, you may say to the young lady, hey, this is how you can honor your husband. This is how you can respect him. This is how you can encourage him. These are ways that you can build him up. Or you in a home where you are constantly just at each other, nagging each other, badgering each other. That whole thing about being kind, I just want to emphasize this. We're going to, a very familiar passage. I hope you all read this occasionally, maybe have it memorized. Funny thing, I was just talking to my wife yesterday, and for our wedding vows, we wrote our own vows, but we used 1 Corinthians 13 here. And I just want to read this to you. You can make a note of this, and maybe you haven't read it for a while. Maybe you're saying, oh, yeah, I know what that is. So love is patient. Love is patient. This is out of the Bible, so I think we can bank on this, right? Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. I had memorized at that time. I got saved, if it's possible. You may not think it's possible. I got saved packing an NIV Bible. It wasn't a King James. I really got saved carrying an NIV. You know, I carried a King James for a long time in a very traditional church setting, and I never got saved. But then when I started packing that NIV, I got saved. Yeah, I got so twisted up. I was such a poor reader, in fairness. I was such a poor reader. I got all twisted up with the these and the thous, and my tongue was all thick, and it was difficult. So when I came to Christ, I began reading an NIV, and then I could understand it. Now, I advanced. I have New King James now, so I know some of you are relieved already. So... But we memorized that because we wanted this to be a vow. And I would say this to anybody who's going to get married. A vow is not poetry. It's something you are committing to. It's a vow until death do you part. It sounds kind of sobering, and it sounds kind of maybe like, oh, that doesn't sound very pretty. It shouldn't be pretty because marriage is not always pretty. It's not always pretty. It's a lot of work. But the rewards are out of this world. They're out of this world. I had somebody come to me some time back, and they said, that has not been my experience. And in all seriousness, that's, and my heart goes out to them because there are circumstances, there are situations that answers are not as easy, far more difficult. But this is what Scripture says. Love is patient, love is kind, does not envy. It does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects. Now, you can put emphasis on any one of these on any given day, but it always protects, always trusts. That doesn't mean you're gullible. That means you believe the best. Always hopes, hoping for the best. Always perseveres. And 8, the first part of verse 8, it says, it never fails. Never fails. That's a lot to chew on. It never fails. And then in verse 13, and there's some in between there. I'm not going to take time to go through that because that's not really the point of it. Some would say, well, this is why prophecy is not for today, and this is why tongues are not for today. And I would say, well, that must be why knowledge isn't for today, because that's included in there too. He's all passed away and all that. But that's another subject. So verse 13 says, and now these three remain. Faith. You may be a person of faith and really pride yourself. Hope. And love. Those three things remain. Those are the three highest things right there. That's what he's saying. But the greatest of these is faith. Oh, it's love. Love. The greatest of these is love. So are you saying that love trumps faith? See, what does that say? It says the greatest of these is love. Now, you may have faith to move mountains, but if you don't love your brother, because you see, Christ loved the church so much that he gave himself for it. If you can't love your spouse, if you can't look him in the eye and say, you know what, I don't feel very good for you right now, but I love you. That's true. Sometimes you may feel like that. My wife has said that right now. I don't like you very much, but I do love you. She's committed to me. We have that understanding. I mean, we're real people. We have issues, or I do anyway. And so I got the better end of the deal. I think I married up, and I'm very thankful. So the first one is just to be kind. Just understanding that. So when you read that, it says love is patient, and the second one is love is kind. You know, practice a little kindness in your marriage. When is the last time you were just really kind? You did something not because you wanted to, not because you had to, but it was simply out of kindness. Let's go on. 2, make time to be together. Make time to be together. I feel sorry for couples who have nothing in common. They had everything in common until they got married. And then after they got married, they have nothing in common. They had children together, and then their lives kind of became complex. And that happens. The more responsibility you have, the more complex life becomes, and the faster time seems to go. When we commit to too many things, make time to be together. Romans 15:5-6 says, now may the God of patience, may the God of patience and comfort grant you to be like-minded toward one another. Now, I'm not trying to stretch this and make this mean something different, but I just want you to understand having a like-mindedness according to Christ Jesus, that you may be one with one mind and one mouth glorify God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. You know, when two people find things that they can do together, you maybe find comfort in working together. You may like to go for a drive together. You may like to exercise together. You may like to go eat food together. I like that. And there may be a lot of things that you could do, but here's what we usually settle for. He goes and does his thing, and she goes and does hers. And they don't find anything that they can do together, and pretty soon they find themselves drifting apart. And it's no mystery. It's actually predictable what's going to happen. They're going to both find friendships outside of that marriage relationship. They'll find somebody who will come along and listen to them. Somebody who, I've heard this, they get me. They understand me. Well, that actually is a result of two people not investing any time in each other. Remember, we started out talking about investing. When I think of things that I want to do, when I first got married, I deer hunted a lot. Would you say a lot? A lot. I mean, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. So, but before we got married, my wife went with me one night deer hunting, and she didn't climb up in the tree because there wasn't really room, but she sat in the truck. And of course, you can't start the truck because that'd make noise. So she sat there in the truck for maybe an hour and a half, I don't know, until it was dark. I thought this was the coolest thing ever. My girlfriend, she's sitting in the truck, and man, this is the greatest thing ever. She told me later, she said, yeah, I probably won't ever do that again. I don't even think that truck had a radio in it. It didn't. It must have been. She was cold and bored. And But you know, after we were married for a while, and we had children, there was things that changed, and I no longer hunted. Eventually, I no longer hunted at all. I quit hunting, but I found things that we could do together. And the more things we found we could do together, the more we grew in our relationship. Now, they weren't necessarily my first choice, and they weren't necessarily her first choice, but we found things that we both enjoyed together. And I would say this to married people: you need to find things you can do together. It doesn't need to be your first thing. When I go riding bike with my friend here, we go and we put it all out there. We go hard and we come home sweaty and, oh man, we feel so good. But when we ride with our wives, it's a different pace, a lot different pace, because we want to do this with them. We want to build relationship. So I encourage you, number 2 is make time to be together. Go on dates, find hobbies, exercise, serve the Lord, laugh, flirt, share food, make food, whatever it is. Find things that you can do together, and you will find fulfillment in that relationship. Men tend to find their fulfillment in working, and they come home at the end of the day, and they feel like, I hear this over and over from men, like, I want to be a good provider. I just heard this the other day. I want to be a good provider. Like, in their mind, that's the way God created us, is to work. So don't criticize us. God made us that way. We're all pretty much that way. We find fulfillment in accomplishing and conquering things. And so at the end of the day, or at the end of the week, even if we hate our job, we know that, man, if you work in a factory, I produce so many units, whatever you did, and you get this paycheck and you think, there, whew, I'm a good provider. We kind of measure ourselves that way. But we may have a spouse that at the end of her day, she's been with these little children, and she's hoping the Calvary's going to come home. And the Calvary comes home and goes right out in the garage, or, goes out in the tree stand, because after all, I've worked hard to provide. And what they really needed was for the Calvary to show up and have some true FaceTime. That's really what they wanted. So find things that you can do together. Find things at the end of the day. I remember coming home and all 3 of my kids were crying, and my wife was crying. What is this? There were 3 little children under 5 years old, and they were all crying. It would have been easy just to go hunting. But I remember swooping those kids up, and it didn't take much. And pretty soon they were laughing and giggling, and pretty soon my wife was happy, and really what she needed was my presence, not my provision. That's really what she wanted. Number 2 is just make time to be together. Remember that you both have different needs. Number 3, serve each other. This is a big one. In investing, when you want to invest in your relationship and when you want to invest in your marriage, you serve. You serve that other person. Even when you don't want to serve, when you come home at the end of the day, husbands, if you've had a rotten day, a miserable day, you've been mistreated, chewed out, cussed out, whatever it is, and you come home, you serve her. You find ways you can serve her. I remember talking about a couple weeks ago, I mentioned Jerry loading the dishwasher. That's kind of a thing that he has learned means a lot to Mina when he loads the dishwasher. Your wife is going to be different. You may not even have a dishwasher. You could maybe care less about the dishwasher. But you find out what's important to her, and you serve her, husbands. Wives, you find ways that you can serve your husband. They will, I say this often, when I serve my wife, she's like putty in my fingers. She'll do whatever I want. It's true. Don't look at me. I got it figured out. You serve your wife. I wouldn't take advantage of her. I'm just saying, she becomes pliable, moldable, shapeable when I serve her. She loves it when I serve her. I'll get to that later. So serving each other. It's not just a one-way street. This is for both of you to serve each other. There's times when you're going to have to invest heavily in your spouse. And there's times when you're going to be able to withdraw. Because you learn to serve, not because of the reward. I don't serve my wife because I want something. I serve her because I love her. Christ modeled that. He didn't come to be served. He came to serve. He set the ultimate example. Sometimes I think we put the emphasis on the wrong syllable and we miss the meaning. It changes the meaning completely when we focus on the wrong thing. And here he gives us really practical things. I just put down here, Mark 10:45 says, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many." What about if all of us would incorporate that in our marriage? How would that change our marriage? How would that change our marriages? I always have room for improvement. I'm not telling you I have it all figured out, but I'm telling you, Mama didn't raise no fool. I'm figuring it out as I go. I trust you are too. Don't keep doing the same thing and complaining about it. You need to do something different if it's not working. Maybe you're putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. You're not getting it. You don't understand. Number four, practice devotion and faithfulness to one another. I think about this. I think about when in the beginning when in Genesis, it says, this is something we read at a time of ceremony. Therefore, a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they two shall become one flesh. We hear that at weddings a lot, and it's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But we kind of forget that about the two becoming one. The two becoming one. So if that means for me to become one with my wife, that means at times I'm going to have to yield to her. There's going to be times when I'm going to have to lay down my ideas, my plans, my crazy notions that I might have, because I want to be one with her. And I want to walk in unity with her. I put some things down here, just some things things that you can say. These would be good things for you to practice, things that you would say to one another. I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad. These are the kind of things we hear in vows in a wedding, but we forget about them after we've been married. In sickness and in health, I will love you and honor you all the days of my life. How would that change things? If you came home at the end of the day, husbands, and you just said that to your wife, you'd blow her away. She'd say, "Who are you? You look like my husband, but thank you for being good to me, even when I don't deserve it." There's that. Thank you for being good to me, even when I don't deserve it. Now, I'm not implying that women are hard to get along with, but I'm just saying there's times when maybe you need to look at your husband and say, "Thank you for being good to me, even when I don't deserve it." It's not automatic. You can't treat one another poorly and expect a good return, right? Not over and over, but there are times when you can just voice that, say, "Thank you for being good to me, even when I don't deserve it. Thank you." That can go both ways, not just for a lady. I appreciate what you did for me today. Wow, just a word of gratitude. I really appreciate what you did for me today. It means a lot just to verbalize that. In good times and in bad, I'm still married to you. In good times and bad, I'm still married to you. That's not going to change. Hey, don't think that there's not going to be bad times. There are going to be bad times, right? Paul said it. Those who marry will have trouble. That's what he said. So we know that that's a reality. Here's the last one I had wrote down is, "I'm sorry." I said this before, but I'm sorry. Would you please forgive me? You acknowledge it. I'm sorry. Would you forgive me? Things would change so rapidly when you just, instead of getting on your little high horse, your pride horse, and defending yourself, just say, "Hey, I recognize that I was wrong. I'm sorry. Would you forgive me?" It changes that. Those walls come down. I mean, it's pretty hard to be angry with somebody when they say something like that. Number 5, pursue God every day. I'm going to back up here. I just want to make a comment. Don't judge me about this, but I love to watch mixed martial arts. I really like that. Many of you know that about me. If I was 40 years younger, I'd probably give it a whirl. But I'm not going to do that. And I'm just going to watch other people beat each other up. I like that. So, but here's the thing. Devotion and faithfulness, thinking about that, devotion and faithfulness. Devotion and faithfulness are not easy things to implement in our lives. That doesn't come natural for most of us. But here's the thing, it's hard for me to get my mind wrapped around because I wrestled in high school, and everything is contrary to wrestling in mixed martial arts. But what happens if you've never watched it? I'm not saying you should, but if you might. So when you get on your back and you're on the mat, you're about ready, you're commencing to get a face pounding is what's going to happen. You're laying on your back, and this guy, what he's going to do, he's going to ground and pound. He's going to hit you in the head until he can knock you out, or something bad's going to happen. And maybe he'll come down like with his fist, and you think you're going to get it with the fist, but no, it's the elbow right across the face. It's pretty brutal. So in wrestling, the first thing you do is you whip over on your stomach, but no. Not in mixed martial arts. You know what's going to happen? You're going to get choked out. They're going to put you in a rear naked chokehold, and either you're going to tap out or you're going to pass out, one or the other. That's what's going to happen. But you know what? They keep going back, and they don't give up. I've never watched a fight where the guy was on his back, and he's taking a beating, and he just said, "Hey, I'm done. I'm out of here. Stop." How committed are you in your marriage? When things get tough, you get a little face pounding. You're just going to tap out and say, I'm out of here. I'm done. I don't have to take that. I admire those people. I admire athletes who they just have so much spit in them, they just don't know how to quit. That's how we should be in our marriage. We should be faithful. We should be devoted. No matter how brutal that gets, we're not giving up. I'm not leaving. I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm staying here. Okay, let's go on. Number 5. Pursue God every day. I think that this is missed. It's so practical and it sounds so Christian that, who doesn't do that, right? We all pursue God every day. But on any given day, if I would quiz you, if I'd hand out papers and ask you, hey, what is your prayer life like today? It's kind of, I could say on a scale of 1 to 10, and I could probably give you a pretty good estimate of what that would look like. And on any given day, there'd be some who would, it'd be down there, maybe a 1 or a 0 or something like that, just because we live life. But in our relationship with our spouse, if we have that understanding, if we first, we would have that understanding that we're going to pursue God every day, first and foremost. In a marriage relationship, typically one of the first things to go is our relationship with the Lord and or our relationship with our spouse. In our busyness. The cares of this world, we have children. When 2 people get married, they live in the same house, they sleep in the bed. Invariably, they have children. That happens. And then responsibility comes. And then we have to have a bigger house because now we have children. And so we have a bigger house. That means more financial responsibility. That bigger house has a bigger yard. We need a new lawnmower. And now we need a place we can no longer have a little hatchback. We have to have a minivan or a cool SUV to put all these kids, and so it builds, right? And so the first thing that often goes is our devotion to the Lord, our prayer life, because we don't have time. And we, after all, men, we need to provide more than anything else. It's interesting because, we know the Jeremiah 29:11, but I think that often we miss out because we don't read on. It says in 12 and 13, it says, "Then you will call upon me and go and pray to me, and I will listen to you, and you will seek me and find me when you search me with all your heart." A lot of our problems would be resolved if we would just start our day that way. Each one of us, husbands and wives, if we would seek the Lord every day. Instead of seeing what our Facebook friends are saying, or our news feed, or our Facebook marketplace, because after all, there may be something I didn't know that I needed this for sale. But if we would seek the Lord, and it says that you will find me when you search for me with all your heart. That would be a game changer in most relationships. Most relationships where there's conflict. I think of the Matthew 6:33 says, because this is so elementary, but it says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all these things shall be added unto you." Those things that you think you need. Number 6, the power of life and death are in the tongue. This is a big one. I think of this often. We talk about this, but we often don't bring this down into terms of marriage. The power of life and death are in the tongue. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Lie. There's no truth in that. Those words will hurt for a long time. And people that are my age will recite things that were said to them as a child that they've never forgotten. Yeah. In our marriages, in our marriages, Proverbs 18:21, it says that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Those who love it will eat its fruit. We know when a kind word turneth away wrath. There's a lot that is said about our words. And when we speak words of life, when we focus on speaking words of life, you need to forget about what happened yesterday and begin to speak words of life today. Start today. Don't dwell on what happened yesterday. I want to tell you just a brief illustration here. How many of you know what a water tower is? It's a tower, it's got water, right? I think a water tower represents two things. They do two things. It holds water, right? But it also holds energy. Do you know why that water is in that tower up there? Why?
To get it to the house the other side of town.
To get it to the house to the other side of town. Why did they put it clear up there? Why not just put it on the ground, Peter? Pressure. So actually there's a formula. I think it's 0.43 pounds of pressure per foot. So if they have it 160 feet, it gives you almost 60 pounds of pressure. So that water is stored and it's held until it's needed. How does that water get up there? It's pumped up there. How often does that pump have to run? We don't know that, do we? We didn't give you enough information to know that. But it doesn't have to run that terrible often because it is a major pump, and it pumps a large volume of water. Funny thing, you may or may not know this, that water gets recycled and sent up there. And so if you're on city water, that water's been used already. Maybe. That water tower is kind of like our love tanks. Now listen to me. There's only one way that water gets in there, and that's when it's pumped in or it's put in. We all have what Gary Chapman would call a love tank. That love tank. And how does that love tank get filled? It's when somebody makes an investment into that love tank. If you don't like the outcome, if you don't like the way things are going in your home, you may be not investing enough. Maybe you're too conservative. You're afraid that, oh, hey, I don't want to lose everything. I mean, yeah, you maybe need to be a little more bold and say, I'm going to invest everything I've got because I believe that this is God's best for me. And I've not been a good investor. But when you put water in that tank, you're going to get water out. But if you don't invest in your spouse, you're not going to get anything good out of that. And there's only one way that can get in there, and that's if you invest and you put it in there. You can make excuses. You can talk about how rotten your spouse is. Don't tell me. I have my own spouse. I can make all the excuses that I want, or I can invest in that relationship. The more I invest, the fuller her tank gets, and the more power she has. It works both ways. If you don't like the outcome, if you don't like what you're getting, you're probably not invested deep enough. I'm not saying that you don't have certain circumstances. I know that we all have different circumstances. But you know, without that water in that tower, there's things that it doesn't take long if the town of Middlebury, if that water tower, if that pump quits working, it doesn't take very long and the whole town kind of shuts down. Do you know that you can't get served at a restaurant without water? How are they going to wash those dishes? What are you going to drink? You can't even have coffee without water. Life stops right there. Here's a big one, though. You may or may not think about this. You can't even flush the toilet without water. Now, that's going to back things up quickly. In our relationship, if you don't invest in that love tank, if you don't put something into it, it's going to shut everything down. It's going to shut everything down. But it's because you haven't invested. You haven't put, you're the pump that needs to run to fill that tank, that love tank. There's a lot of things, in the concept of, there's a lot of diagrams, and I had an illustration that I wanted to do, but I knew that I would run out of time. But it seems like that in marriages today, there's a great shortage of love supply. A lot of people aren't investing these days. They're investing in themselves. Like, God wants me to be happy. I don't know how that would work for my wife when she was taking care of me in some of my darkest times of cancer treatment. It was no party for her. She was in the other room crying. So I don't think we can really say, oh, God wants you to be happy. I don't think it's his highest calling. I think he knows that there's going to be difficulty here on this earth. He wants you to have joy in your heart knowing the end of this equation. Amen. The end of the equation. Amen. This is not your eternity. This short little time span here on this earth, this is not it. In the same way of filling that love tank, there's things that make a withdrawal, a heavy withdrawal. When you go to the bank and you draw money out of that account, eventually you're going to clean that account out. It's like that in our love tank. When you keep making withdrawals in that love tank, eventually that tank runs dry. It's bankrupt. And there's things when you speak words that are rude, crude, you speak harshly to one another, you disrespect each other, those things drain that love tank. Those are things that will drain that love tank. If you want to admonish, encourage, exhort, edify, speak words of life, those are ways to invest, to pour into that love tank. And there'll be times when you need to make a withdrawal and there'll be something in there. But if you've not invested heavily, you are a Spirit-filled church, so you have those attributes of the Spirit of God in you. You just sometimes need to activate those. I think about this. This is kind of a troubling. Well, I have two scriptures. One is Matthew 6:21, and it's a very familiar passage. But it says, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Where is your treasure? The most valuable thing to you here on this earth. Where is that? What is that? Is that your job? Is that your home? Is that your truck? I say truck because I like trucks. But my truck's almost 20 years old. So what is it that has the greatest value? Because that is where your treasure is. That's what Scripture says. But here's something that when you think about how you speak to one another, whether you're making an investment or a withdrawal into your spouse's love tank, Matthew 12:36 and 37 says, on that day of judgment, get this, on that day of judgment, you will give an account for every careless word. For by your words you are justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Think about that next time you go to speak to your spouse. When you open your mouth, like you may want to just have a coffee filter over that and filter those words before they come out. It's pretty troubling to me to think that about my words that I speak. Church, if we're to be Spirit-filled, then we should have something to fill our spouse with. I don't know about you, but if it's not modeled in the church, who's going to model a marriage relationship to these ones that are getting married? I'm thinking about Chris and Amber because they're officially engaged and they've set a date and all that. So who's gonna set that example for them? Can I send them to your house and say, hey, go over to their house and just live with them for a week? And then mimic everything that they do. Talk to each other the way they talk to each other. Prefer each other or disregard each other the way that they do. If they don't learn it from the church, if it's not by demonstration, how will they know that? Oh, I know, they'll watch TikTok, right? Think about it. Who's going to model that for them? in the church, shouldn't they be able to sit behind you on any, I mean, not just in church, but in your life and follow you after what you're doing? And say, hey, I want to be like them. Okay, the number 7. This is probably one of the most important. Begin new every day. Begin new every day. You know, we've all done some raunchy things in our lives, and I'll confess I probably have done really, really bad things in my past. And I'm glad they're not up on a screen for everybody to see. So I'm not talking about, I'm just, even in my own life, none of us want to be held accountable for our past. And we can't change our past. All we can do is from here forward, we can change that. 1 Corinthians 13:5 says, love keeps no record of wrongs. Love keeps no record of wrongs. You need to remember that next time you're tempted to throw something out in your spouse's face when you're having a heated conversation and you want to bring up the past. It says that love keeps no record of wrongs. Remember those things, those 2 words I told you about a couple weeks ago, always and never. That's bringing up the past. 1 Peter 4:8 says, and above all things, have fervent love for one another. For love will cover what? Wow. You mean that if I have fervent love for my spouse, that will actually cover? Does that mean that it's okay? It actually means I'm not going to hang her sin out on the clothesline for everybody else. I care so much about her. When she falls, I'm going to cover her. I'm going to stand with her. My wife doesn't hang all my dirty laundry out for everybody to see. She sees it, but her love is redeeming. Romans 12:17 says this. It says, repay no one evil for evil. We do that in our marriage sometimes, right? You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. I think that if we would just simply, when we read the Word of God, if we would simply apply that to our marriage. You can make all kinds of excuses if you want to. In fact, I would encourage you, if you have something, a beef about something I've said or something I've read out of the Bible, please talk to me about it. Because I think we need to implement this in our lives. And this is the day we need to implement it. Men, women, we need to implement this today, now. You can't afford to wait till you're older to invest. You need to invest now. You get that compounded effect. Okay, I'm going to close with that because I went just a little bit longer. But I would like, Joey, could we sing that song, maybe that I Surrender All? Joey, did you go home? No, you didn't go home. I'd like to sing that, and here's what I'd like to do, and we don't need to belabor this, but I want to invite you to do something, because I'm very practical and pragmatic. I think that we should give opportunity. If you're not satisfied with the way things are, and I can say this, that I'm never satisfied. I'm always looking for better. I'm always looking for better. I am always looking for better, but I'm not imposing that on my wife, talking about my marriage relationship. I'm actually putting that on myself. I'm owning it. Say, I think I can do better. I think I can do better. And every time I do that, every time I take a step forward, she takes a step forward. It's automatic. I shouldn't say every time, but I know that every time I invest in her, I'm investing in something in the future. It may not pay off now, but I know eventually it's going to pay off. So we're going to sing. He's coming. Okay. I should have gave him a little time. Sorry about that. If we could just sing that song, I Surrender All. I want to invite you, if you are married here today, in fact, I'm just going to ask you to come up front with your spouse. And when you sing this song, I want you to sing thinking, I'm ready to lay this down. My differences, maybe you came here today and everything's honky-dory, and that's good. I love that. But I think that we can all do better, right? Can you do better? I can do better. Maybe just the words that you say, there's always people listening when you're talking to each other. They're hearing what you're saying. So we're going to sing, and if you're married, if you're here today, you're with your spouse, don't argue with me, just come. Just bring your spouse and come. And we're going to sing this song, and I want you to just have this mind of devotion to the Lord. Be willing to surrender your pride and be able to say, hey, I'm going to surrender what doesn't work in my life.